repair job on our little house on the prairie. Put it back up again just in case we need to come back here in a few minutes. It's not dry. I mean, there's probably more water falling off the trees than out of the sky at the moment, so it's better to go for a little drive. I don't know if you were with us picture wise earlier when we were watching some of these impala and the wildebeest lying down, but I'm sure we'll be able to get to see them if it rains. I think let's try now that we've got a little bit of a window of very fine drizzle. There's maybe a few drops falling. Let's take a little bit of a drive and see what this rain has done, see what this rain might have brought out. Very, very heavy rains. This was a big storm that came in from the north more than anything else. Welcome to Djuma, welcome to Wild Earth and our live broadcast from South Africa.
Sunny South Africa.
Sunny South Africa. Yes. A couple of days of the year we don't have sun. 360 days of the year we do. Maybe a little exaggeration. Looks like the dam has filled up somewhat. Djuma waterhole, Gowrie Dam, whichever name you prefer. That full that it doesn't seem to have washed over the spillway. Some hippos there. Okay, catch up with what's happening here at Gowrie Dam through the Djuma waterhole camera. I want to go and see along Twin Dams Road here. I want to go and see if there's any water in the Milwaukee River. Not a good time to be going off. We're going to be very limited if we do see things. There's some places we could go off-road if we do see things. There's some places we could go off-road. This is where we are now, and down low-lying areas close to the drainage line, where it's a thinner sandy layer of soil, mostly clay down here, and the vehicle will probably sink to its chassis as soon as you go off-road. The roads have been compacted over time, so I think roads are fine. A little bit mushy, a little bit slippery in places. Look, there's a giant land snail in the road. That's quite a big one. I need to go and show you how big that is by putting some scale to it. Excuse me, I hope everything's fine here. The size of my hand. Come here, assassin. There's an assassin bug. Fly away. So now that is a true bug. The assassin bug, not the snail, by the way. Snail is Achatina, the giant African land snail. It's a wonderful creature. I've had one that is so big that its foot is the width of my hand, the head up there, and then the tail way beyond my wrist. So that is a big one, but I've seen bigger. I rescued one towards the end of the dry season by digging a new pipeline at home for a new water tank, and one of the guys must have inadvertently, well, because they burrow these snails so it wouldn't have been seen, the guy digging with a shovel must have just caught the edge of the snail's shell and took out a chunk that must have been about an inch and a half in diameter. And of course, snail should have been hibernating, should have been dormant. And what happened was it's exposed to the hot, dry sun, and after just in time it was drying out. But it had also, somehow the body was starting to, well, it had come out through this hole that had been made in its shell, rather than the right place come out. And I washed it off, and I managed to slowly but surely maneuver its muscle, the whole body of the snail, back through this hole. And then I first put some plumbing tape, which is PTFE tape, and then I bound it quite well, and kept it in a tub and fed it a lot of lettuce and a lot of whatever I could find that was green. Mostly it was eating lettuce for weeks and weeks. And every couple of days, or every few days, I'd unwrap it and rebind it, and slowly but surely the calcium started developing a break. But what was strange, because it was around the shell, the tape had made a sort of a flat where it went over the hole. It flat. So the calcium that was deposited where it went over the hole, made it flat. So the calcium that was deposited was flat. So I'll be able to notice that snail in the future. In fact, at one point, towards sometime, when was it? Sometime in September, after I'd probably had the snail for a good few weeks. At least 5 weeks, I think. I had to go away for a few days. I had to go and do some work up in Salati, in the Salati Game Reserve, and it was weather like this. So I left it outside at the bird bath and hoped that it would be fine, that because the ground was damp it would be able to burrow. By then the calcium had grown sufficiently to cover the hole in its shell. It was quite amazing, because a couple of weeks later, when it was raining again, there the snail was, back at the bird bath. And they are quite territorial. But they do, like most other snails, they leave a slime trail. And so they know the area, they can always sense they've been. They know the immediate where they live. And I've known snails to live in the same place for years. Come out onto my stoep during the rain. They are kept as pets all over the world. It's illegal in some places to have them because they can cause quite a lot of damage, especially if they escape into another country, where they don't belong. They can become detrimental to local snail populations, but also just to the vegetation. They, being hermaphroditic, just one snail can reproduce. Question. Well, this isn't exactly a waterfall, but it's a nice little river flowing. This is normally a very dry stream bed. Still flowing very strongly from yesterday's rains. It's the drainage line here on Twin Dams Road. Question from Niagara Falls: how long is the rainy season? Usually starts, well, it's Asa, so it's Now, look at that little... Actually switch off and listen to water. That lovely soft sound of water flowing. That means the Milwaukee is definitely going to have a lot of water in it. So let's go see. Go and have a look see. So we can expect rain anywhere from September through April. But often, hello Nyala, oh Mr. and Mrs. Generally, or in the old days, it was pretty much we get a good few rainfalls in September, starts greening things up, and then again October, November, with the heavy rains coming now, December, January, but still rains into March and April. Towards the end of April even we've had rains, but nothing is really, there's no pattern anymore, there's no certainty. So I guess you could say the rainy season is anywhere between September and April. Generally, well, the last few years it's been mostly falling around December and January, which is quite difficult for a lot of things. Chelapan is full. We'll come and see that when we can get a little closer to it. Grasses are getting quite long now. And this rain and this amount of moisture is also going to make everything taller. Grasses, herbs, forbs, everything is going to start looking like middle summer soon. Beautiful. Hopefully we're going to get some more flowers coming out. Look, here's a crab. Wow, freshwater crab. Can you see it? Juvenile freshwater crab. Heaven only knows where they go, and I know they burrow underground in the dry season. It's remarkable that out of nowhere suddenly there's a crab. That's something we don't see often on a drive. Hello, wet darling. Everything's wet today. The birds, the bees, the flowers and the trees. Oops, what is that? Another crab? No, it's not moving. Piece of wood. So, water, no water. Yes, no, yes, no. Is there water? Is there water? Not really. A little bit. Not as much as I thought. There's a little bit of a flow. It looks like it came down heavier than it is now. This is filled up. Sure. Let's take a drive down the riverbed and see. And this is actually where the water ends. It seems to be sinking into the ground here. I don't know how. It should be fairly solid enough. Almost the beginning of the flood. The water's been flowing here very strongly, especially down the two tracks that the vehicles have caused. Interesting. Let's head down the riverbed and see. Yeah, it was flowing quite strongly. Must have been during the night, or just after the very heavy storm yesterday. And I've never seen, no, not never, very seldom have I seen that heavier rain. Last year January and 2012 January when we had our excessive flooding. Yesterday when Scott and guys were out, I think they were out 10-15 minutes if, and it started coming down, but bucketing down. But within 5 minutes it was you couldn't see ground. It was a sheet. There were just sheets of water flowing over the ground towards the camp where we stayed, which is on a slope. There's a courtyard in the camp that filled up. It was a swimming pool. 5 minutes. Unbelievable amount of water in such a short time. There's kudu bull. Yeah. Magic big kudu bull. So if we go around the corner, we're not gonna get to see him too well. If we just stop here and get a clearer view of him before we move closer. Why is doing that? We can't stop under this buffalo thorn because it's raining on us. Funny how the wind just suddenly blew and shook all the rain loose. Well, let's go. Could be that some of his buddies are around too. If it is one of the group that we've been seeing some time. They've been around for a while now. And hopefully getting used to us. Hello, old man. Oh, he's sitting down. Sitting down the cud. And let's stop there before we disturb him. Lying down. I don't know if he's going to let us drive past him without getting up, but we can try. We just do it slowly and we pretend not to look at him. There's another bull. Yeah, this is the group, because there's another bull lying back behind. That other bull is the one with the very narrow spread to his horns. Dude, we're just coming past you. There's the other one at the back there. He's quite fine. It's amazing that he let us close and come past him like that. So there's two of them. I don't know where the others are. But as you see, most animals are curled up like this in this weather. He's going to be a bit intimidated. Looks like he's getting ready to stand up. No, he's fine. Lying, the two of them are lying facing in opposite directions. It's quite an important thing for animals when they are resting, that they do face in different directions, obviously for looking out for danger. And especially with this wind and this weather, noises of the rain falling, vegetation moving, wind blowing through trees, they've got to filter out all the ambient noise to hear that one little thing that's going to tell them that there's a predator lurking, if they're lucky. If they're lucky enough to hear it. Oxpeckers seem to be arriving. I can hear some oxpeckers. Of course, the oxpeckers also act as early warning systems in a way for these birds, for these animals. I don't know where the oxpeckers are, but I can hear them. Okay, let's see what else we can find. Animals resting, like them resting. It's all nice to put the animal and leave as we found them, not running away or moving away. For me, it's quite important to be able to do that. There was a baby terrapin on the sand. Not as small as the one I saw days ago, but okay. About the kudu, is they're asking whether there is a purpose to those horns. Well, I guess in a way there is, rather than, I might be the other way around, rather than there being a purpose, they curve up their horns to hook branches and pull branches down. They are a member of the spiral horn antelope family, the family of antelope known as the tragolapids, who all have spiral horns. The purpose, I mean, I've seen kudu using their horns to help themselves, to help get through very thick bush. Next time we see a kudu bull again, I'll show you if we can how when he's moving through thick bush with the big horns. Now you have the curve between the two shoulders of very distinct hump of the shoulders, which is called the nuchal muscle, N-U-C-H-A-L, and I've seen kudu lay the one horn along their back, along the top of the nuchal muscle, and use the other horn out to the side to actually push brush away, and then the other horn actually protects the whole dorsal crest, including the nuchal muscle, from damage going through trees and through thick bush. And then of course there's the fighting. There's I guess in some ways it's developed that kind of shape for the method that they fight. I don't know if that has something to do with it. I think we need to maybe stay a little bit closer to closer to home. It's starting to drizzle again. I don't want it to get, and it's starting to look a little bit dark in the south. I don't want to get caught out here in some heavy rain. So we're just going to wander around fairly close to base, see how it goes. Excuse me, Dove. Thank you. Starting to get a bit heavier. If we look at the puddle down the bottom here, you can see how the rain is starting to pick up again. Maybe not a good idea to head this way. Oh, look at this kingfisher. Wow. And there was a duiker. Kingfisher is very close to us. I think we're going to have to go back to Little House. Starting to come down again now. Sorry, kingfisher, we'd love to watch you. Probably diving into this water for a wash off its feathers. with this heavy weather, does it make it more difficult for predators to hunt their prey? And that's the question from Josh in Arizona. Hi there, Josh. Thanks for the question. Good comment there, because there are some predators that will improve their hunting prowess or their success rate in this weather, but there's some that won't. I mean, the lion, certainly, there's certain prides of lion that I've known in the past who have hunted certain species, specifically giraffe and sometimes buffalo, in this kind of weather because the ground is soft. Also it's very slippery, and lion can stalk to a certain extent, so they can get fairly close to the prey. The one animal that actually suffers in this type of weather and with these type of conditions are the wild dog, funnily enough, in that during the wet summer months their success rate drops considerably because the grasses get a little bit too long, and especially when it starts getting wet like this, it hinders their, I suppose it hinders their movement. It slows them down a little bit. I'd say leopard are probably doing very well in this kind of weather because they can stalk their prey a lot. They can get closer to their prey. A lot quieter for them to be able to do that. And maybe cheetah. I have seen cheetah hunt in this weather, but I don't know. I don't think I could quantify whether it's harder or easier for them. All I can say though is for the predators, for most of them, that with this kind of weather, at least they're not burning up so much energy, so that their energy levels or their energy dynamics change somewhat. Cats can move around in this weather better than they can, or they can just move around in this. Whereas in the hot weather, for them to move around in the heat just means that their body will overheat. It takes a lot more energy for them to stay cool, for them to maintain their body temperature. Looks like there was a giraffe here. Might be further up the road. It's drizzling. Now it's slowed down a little bit. When we were with the kingfisher, it looked like it was getting harder. So it's kind of hard to call what we should do. At the moment, not too bad. Not getting too wet. Neither is my hat. The giraffe was walking on the road, but now did it walk that way or that way? I think it went straight. No, it went through there. And back on the road. Oh. Had a wind picking up now. And of course, with the wind and all the rain comes the wind chill factor. A little bit chilly for me. Africa chilly. I mean, not anything like your cold climate up north. a European or Eurasian roller, one of our European visitors. It'd be nicer to see him from the front. Ephraim again. Good morning, Ephraim. Any update for Western Gari? Okay, thanks. So the European roller, mostly a turquoise color, as opposed to the two or the other rollers that have more purple in them. One of the 3 roller species that we're likely to get here. Lilac-breasted, of course, being the common resident that we have. Somewhat displaced a little bit by the arrival of the European rollers, because they are a little bit heavier and they're a little bit more aggressive, I'd say. And then we have the purple or Mozambique roller, which is also one of our residents, but they tend to take a back seat, as it were. They tend to keep a lower profile than the lilac-breasted roller. But normally this time of the year the most dominant would be the European rollers, but not that many that as in the past few years. For some reason haven't been seeing many at all this year. Now it's feeling like it's going to clear. Now not a drop of water coming out of the sky. All of a sardine. With a strong wind coming out of the west. And a very dark sky in the south. Wildebeest lying down. Everybody's lying down today. They're quite cold, these boys, I'm sure. It's easy for us to put layers on. For the animals, after a very heavy rain and now this cool wind that's coming in, they They are affected. They're not as active as they normally are, lying down to try and conserve their body temperature, conserve warmth and body temperature. It was a falcon or something just landed up there, maybe. And I didn't bring my binoculars. Such a rush to get everything together with the rain. Don't know what that is. I'm going to try and roll forward. It looks like a raptor that landed in this dead tree. Ah, off it goes. Maybe it's a cuckoo. I think it's a cuckoo. Jackie was asking if there are any migratory birds that come here from North America. Good question, Jackie. I don't think it's not so much that birds come here from North America. I think what it is that some birds that might migrate to North America might come to Africa. I've got to check up on that. I must have a look at. I don't have it with me, but at home I've got a book on bird migration. I'd have to think about it. I think there might be some waders that we have in common, but not because they, I don't know. I'll have to check up on that. Maybe I can get a hint from some of my birders out there if they know of anything, but I'm gonna have to look into that. I think I can think of offhand. There was zebra here, up and down. Yeah, I can still maybe do them while I'm driving. Hello, Bonner. Hello, hello. Wanting to know what kind of hooves the wildebeest have. Pretty much like all the bovids, all the antelope. It's two toes that they're on. I suppose it's the two middle fingers and the two middle toes that have become their hooves. So they have a hoof very much like that of of obviously different in shape, but very much like that of most of the herbivores. Most of the, let's see what these tracks are. Oh, it was zebra rolling here. Zebra rolling in the sand. Zebra have a single toe, so they have a single hoof. Well, most of the other herbivores have two toes, so we call them even. They're part of the even-toed ungulates. All the ungulates, much like your deer. In fact, wildebeest track is probably very similar to a very large deer track, or bigger than a large deer track. I'll try and find you some wildebeest tracks. There are some around when I can, when we get back towards the open areas. Just got to get rid of the spider in my face. A tiny little, gorgeous little thing. There you go. Spin a new web. Been a lot of zebra around, or maybe just one herd that's been quite active. And there's the giraffe tracks. The giraffe that I was following earlier crossed over here. Pity about that. One giraffe moving about. Otherwise, hyena maybe crossing into Little Gari over here. Yep, hyena crossed in there. Very easy to see some tracks now because this heavy rain has washed the roads clean. I mean, it's cleaned the slate completely, and the only tracks that I'm able to see are tracks of animals that have been moving in the last couple of hours, really. Giraffe in there. To see these pans have filled up completely. Frogs will be busy. Frogs have been busy. There are a lot more foam nests now on top of or above all these little water holes and pans. Trying to clean sand off the disc that was squeaking. There we go. Might have done the trick. Two flowers to look at here. Ow. Here in the foreground, the wild honeysuckle. And then in the background, the yellow raisin bush flowers coming out. Yeah, because the wind blows. As soon as you want to focus on the flower, the wind blows. Chris, hello Chris. Chris the Rogue. Thanks for that, Chris. That should have occurred to me. The northern wheat ear. I don't have my books because of the rain. I didn't bring my books, but later I can show you a picture, or you can Google it quickly. But the northern wheat ear, it's a very pretty bird. Makes a round trip of, Chris saying, around 18,000 miles or something between North America and Africa. That's interesting. Thanks, Chris. Northern wheat ear. We also get the capped wheat ear. Buffalo. There would be buffalo tracks here because we're getting close to Treehouse Dam. There's always buffalo around this dam. They're quite happy to just live out their time here with a lot of grazing and good wallowing. No need to go anywhere else. No need to follow the herds and their movement of vast distances that they cover. There's some cold and wet fleas in the grass. They're moving away. Helmeted guinea fowl. They were all huddled together under a bush, but I guess a little intimidated by us coming back to see them. Rain's coming again. This looks like it's potentially quite heavy. Oh, okay, we got to rush too. A question from one of our birders in Finland. Well, I think Ray says it's not a birder, just likes birds. Or is that RC? But Ray, say hi to you in Finland. Are we going to try and get to, there's a pretty heavy squall coming in. I can see it moving closer. It's starting to get very misty, as you can see with the camera lens. Ray is saying she's heard that the scimitar bull and the green woodhopoo, or the red-billed woodhopoo, produce a foul-smelling oil from glands for preening to deter predators. I think all of the hoopoes do. I think it's characteristic of all the hoopoes, woodhopooes or plain hoopoes. Once again, something I need to read up on further. I've also heard that. I haven't ever been close enough to be able to verify it. Never been that close to a hoopoo before that I've been able to smell a hoopoo. You can see how this is closing in. I can't even see the camera, but it's looking out over Djuma in the distance. This is a heavy squall of rain coming in. I'm going to try and get us to the shelter. There I was thinking that it was going to ease up and the sky was going to lift, but it's not. It's actually closing in completely. We might have to shut down because it's getting a bit too wet to cover things up. Glad we get a little bit of time out. I think it'll be okay if we just stay on for now. If it's getting too wet, we'll shut down. But there will be a lot of rain on the lens. But now we've got our back to it, so maybe less impact by driving in the direction that this rain is moving. Unfortunately, with this kind of wind, it's difficult because it blows sideways. Wow, this is full. Drainage line below the pump house, Philemon's Dip, is flowing strongly. It's the same drainage line that we saw in the little river earlier when we started. The same one we were listening to running under the vehicle at the start of our drive this morning. The one that crosses Twin Dams Road. I do love this weather, but not today. Not with, or not now. I love this weather when we can, when it's in between drives, stay in bed and read a book or catch up on things. We might just have to spend the last half hour under the shelter. Got the wildebeest in the background at least. We can watch them a little bit while we're here, but for now, this will just have to do. So, send in some questions or let us know what you think. Questions at WildEarthTV if you've got email. For those of you who can tweet, #SafariLive. And I'm going to chat to you for the rest of this morning's drive. Not much left to go, but at least it'll keep us dry ish. Can we see any wildebeest? We can see wildebeest through there. Maybe park at an angle. What do you think? Okay. Sure. Pass me that lens cloth, please.
Yeah, not you.
Oh, you're gonna do it. Sorry, and this light. Oh, getting really chilly now with this rain and wind. Picked up considerably. Shaney on Twitter. Shaney wanting to know the difference between male and female wildebeest. I suppose the biggest difference is in size and thickness of the neck, and of course the size of the horns. The male wildebeest has got much heavier horns. But he's also, I suppose, for a wildebeest, when you're looking at them from the front, there is a black forehead on the male. The females tend to have very pale brown or brown foreheads. Think about one of those. Jason's just tightening up some strings that are actually hanging in the camera's view. Because the other thing is genitals. In a lot of animals, especially the larger mammals, you can see genitalia. You can see, with the males, you generally can see testicles and of course other parts. Just try and bring that this way as they will. It's locked off. I'm trying to move the camera, but Jason will have to come in.
Just done. The way the name of the. There you go, just done. With your thumb. There it is. There it is.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Look, there's Jason. Tying things. stretching where I'm not going to be able to stretch, taller than me. And autofocus camera, come on, autofocus, thank you. I was trying to follow that wildebeest. Lock again. It's unlocking the locking plate. Go maybe to that side. Pardon?
It's behind the tree.
Yeah, it's behind the tree now, but that one's coming out into the open with those impala to the left. So, the bull wildebeest, heavier horns. Of course, they're a little bit far now to be able to tell, but you also, generally in a place like this, you'll have one bull and a bunch of females. We saw those two bulls earlier. They're probably bulls that are looking for an open area to establish a territory. Wildebeest tend to, the males will find it and hold a territory and expect females to come into their territory. So the stronger and the more active the bull, or the more dominant the bull, the better the area he can secure, so he's going to attract the females or attract a better group of females. Wonderful question coming in from Fiji, from Trent. Hi there, Trent, and great to hear from you in Fiji. How's your afternoon going? Why do both male and female wildebeest have horns as opposed to the other antelope? That's a very good question. There's a theory behind it. And it's not only the wildebeest that both sexes have horns. If we have a look at all of the plains game, the animals who generally live out in the open plains, which are all of the gazelles, the Thompson gazelle, Grant's gazelle, springbok here in South Africa, which is also a gazelle, the wildebeest, there are antelope called hartebeest and blesbuck and topee. These are all grassland plains antelope, and the theory is that once upon a time, look at him, he's a she. I think it's a bull. He's rolling. This is his territory, so he's rolling, digging a little bit of a hole to be able to roll in. Pressing his horns into the sand. All part of leaving his scent in the ground and getting the ground on him. Okay, so getting back to the antelope story. A lot of the antelope that where only the bulls have, and only the males have horns, like the impala in the background, are antelope that do also live in, they don't necessarily stay in the open plains. I don't know if you can just pan to the rain that's coming in the back there, Jason. Show everybody how that looks with that lovely mist. It's getting pretty heavy. It's closing in completely. We're about to get very wet. So the plains game that tended to move towards the bush and now they live in the bush, those females have lost their horns, so become vestigial in a lot of antelope species who no longer occupy the niche of the open plains. And the theory behind that is it's all got to do with protection. Females that live out on the plains and live out in the grasslands still need their horns to protect their offspring and to protect themselves, whereas for the antelope that moved into the thicker bush, the density of the vegetation became their escape, became their defense, and so the females no longer needing horns for defense, no longer needing horns, became a vestigial thing. And every now and then you do get a throwback, you do get that end of the gene pool where female is born with horns, but they're normally very distorted and very deformed. I've got a female impala at home that has got just the right horn. It curls around her face, around her eye like a monocle. I think I've known 4 in my lifetime. Found one in Salati just a few months ago, and I've seen one up in East Africa that had a very, very strange set of horns, and there was a female in the southern Sabi Sands about 25 years ago that we knew of that had 2 horns that curled around her eyes. Very heavy wave of rain coming in now. I can actually see it moving in waves behind this wildebeest. Glad we managed to get here to cover. This wind is bringing it in sideways. Oh. Digging more. Morning to Pepperbird. Hello Linda, nice to hear from you. Great to hear from you, in fact. Question on spiders and spider webs. Does the rain affect the spider webs? Depends on the spiders. It'll prevent a number of spiders from spinning their webs. Some spiders that have permanent webs, it will disrupt them, if not break them. See, it depends on the spider, whether the spider is the kind of spider that lives in a permanent web and it constantly repairs it and is constantly working on it, or whether it's a spider like some of the bark spiders and some of the orb web spiders who will spin either a diurnal or a nocturnal web depending on their habits, whether they are diurnal or nocturnal. They just probably wouldn't spin in this weather. That's not really a wise thing to do, since there are no insects flying around, so there's no point in spinning the web, so they'll stay tucked in under a leaf. So for the temporary web builders, they're not likely to be building their webs, and for those web spinners that are in permanent webs, they will invariably be in a part of their web or a part of the web structure that will keep them under out of harm's way. I mean, like some of the orb webs that are permanent web weavers, you might find that in this heavy rain they'll be up on the branch where one of the main strands is attached to the branch, clinging to the branch itself, especially if there's strong wind. Some of them, like the big golden orbs, of course they're not big yet, the golden orbs are still very small. They will be hanging upside down in the middle of their web, clinging on, just bearing the weather. Here's the nursery with some of the youngsters of these wildebeest. I think getting back to Trapperbird's question, the uncanny ability of spiders to be able to tell when there are a lot of insects flying around. Of course, it's got a lot to do with humidity and temperature. Time of the year, of course, is very important. But I think part of that question was also the seasonal spider activity, and I was asking about. There's a lot of activity that still happens in our dry season. It's hard to really call it winter because although the nighttime temperatures can drop fairly low, there's still a fair amount of insect activity during the day, and so there are still spiders that are very active throughout our winter months, dry season months. Obviously not as many as in summer, in particular because in summer all the young spiders are hatching and spinning their webs and growing. But when it's cool weather and it's rain like this, it's not really favorable conditions for insects to be moving around very much. And so with a lower level of insect activity, there's a lower level of spider activity. If we were to get some bright sunshine in the next day or two and things started warming up and heating up, and of course the humidity level will rise, then we'll probably even be seeing some of the bark spiders as we end our drives in the evening. We'll be able to watch them spinning their webs. They spin a web every evening. Sometimes can take them 20 minutes to complete a web, as opposed to, say, some of the orb weavers, some of the permanent web weavers, like the big golden orbs and garden orbs, who meticulously spin their web with precision, taking hours sometimes. And most of that heavy rain has moved on now. That heavy squall, it wasn't so much heavy droplets, but very dense, very fine droplets that were blowing in. Seems to have maybe stopped a little bit. Don't know if it's going to give us a chance to go anywhere. With this wind, I think it's best to maybe just stay here for now. Pretty heavy wind picking up. Do we get any tornadoes in Africa from Deb? Huh, Deb? Occasionally. Here in South Africa, I can't speak too much of the rest of Africa. Africa is an exceptionally large continent. It can fit the whole of North America and China and I think even Russia. So I'm not too sure of weather in other parts of Africa other than East Africa, and I can't remember any incidents up there. Maybe, but there have been the odd tornado type phenomena here in South Africa, hurricane type things, but not the tornadoes that you get in Oklahoma or thereabouts, Tornado Alley. Tornado, tomato, tomato. Branches and branches. Let's call the whole thing off. question from Georgia, from Joellen. Hello, Joellen. The largest spider we get is one of the baboon spiders, the large Margellomorphs. We call them baboon spiders. They're sort of Africa's equivalent of a tarantula. They're big, hairy, ground hunting spiders. They live in silk-lined burrows. They become about the size of a man's hand, I'd say, the biggest ones. Big females. Males don't get that big, but the females do. They live for up to 20 years, in fact. Harpactorella, I think, is their genus, of the scientific name. But the ground-dwelling or the ground-hunting spiders, which are all collectively known as Margellomorphs, with downward stabbing fangs for them to stab their prey. The baboon spiders that we have don't have a very powerful venom. Their bite can be painful for some of the species. There's one species of dwarf Margellomorph that is of some interest in that its venom can be a little bit more potent. Little wildebeest was running towards its mom, who stood up maybe so that the little one can feed. Oh, no, she's pushing it away. It's trying to drink, it wants to drink, but she's just not letting it. I think we should drive a little bit for 10 minutes. I think we can take a chance. Maybe get closer to the wildebeest and impala. It seems like it's slowed down again now. Yep. Any chance I can get rather than sitting under there, or at least being out. A little bit of rain, but it's not as heavy and as fast as it was. Another giant land snail. It's also a big one. Wow, look at that. That's even bigger than the one we saw earlier. The different colouring that you get in these snails has all got to do with the vegetation. Oh, must have picked up some scent of or warmth or something from the vehicle. It's retreated into its shell. But the different striations you get are from different vegetation that it eats during the wet season. They only really come out in this really wet weather, and of course every time they come out there is different vegetation and different things, and not only feeding on vegetation, they're also very much detritivores. I've seen them feeding on animal remains, animal dung. There are some tribes in Africa that are known to eat them, but they keep them in crushed maize to clean the system out. Because they have such a varied diet, these snails, they can be very, their stomachs can contain a lot of bad stuff. So as far as I know, they've been used, or they've been eaten, but only after they're kept in sort of flour or maize, crushed maize flour, or a coarse maize flour, for a couple of weeks to flush out the system. And there are some people in Africa that have used the shells not only as cups and vessels, but also to crush the shell to get calcium. I believe that Shangaan people used to do that. Crush up the shell and add it to food as a calcium supplement. I don't know if we're going to get to see what their hoof looks like with 20 long grasses, but maybe we'll be able to get to see the difference. Like this, the forehead of the wildebeest. All the Although this one that we're looking at now, she's probably quite an old girl, so she's got quite a dark forehead. Also with the wet weather there. Not easy to see, but we can see her mammaries between her back legs. The bull would have a much thicker neck, but she's not a youngster, this one. She seems to be quite an old girl. Brown forehead. I don't know if the bull will come through this way, maybe. Naturally, all of them are lactating, so it's quite easy to see the mammary glands that are swollen mammaries as they move away from us. Well, we can only hope that the weather's going to clear up for us this afternoon, and hopefully it does. I have no idea what it's going to do. This kind of cloud 1 minute looks like it's going to clear, and the next minute it sort of comes in pretty heavy. It's also coming in from very weird angles. So there's clearly a very, very big weather system that has settled on what we call the low veld, just east of the escarpment, and we're sitting right underneath it. Thanks for your patience during these times of rain and weather. I know we're only doing the drives for a short while, and we want to try and be out here as often as we can and as much as we can, and with this rain it does disrupt things a little bit. Thanks for your patience this morning too, waiting for me. I know we did start a little bit late because of the rain earlier, but we at least got out. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the questions that came in from all of you. Nice to know we got someone in Fiji. My name is Mark. Thanks from all of us here, Jason and Alex and the guys up in Manyaleti. We'll be seeing you a little bit later. I hope you're going to join us, and have a happy Monday. Goodbye all. Love you lots. See you later.